Good morning, beautiful people. Hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Today I want to talk about cheat meals, about refeeds and diet breaks and different dieting strategies, all of that. So first is diet breaks and maintenance days, carb cycling, etc. Essentially having differing intakes, right? And is there efficacy? Why would you do it? First is, what is a diet break? What is a true diet break? A diet break is where you bump your calories back to maintenance. It's not where you overfeed. It's where you just go back to maintenance for normally a week. They can be as long as you want them to be. But it's normally a week of maintenance after being in a deficit for some amount of time, right? You can auto-regulate them or you can have them scheduled. Personally, I would rather have them scheduled. I think having planned meals, planned diet breaks are a lot better than auto-regulation, because when you have auto-regulation, it is always lingering in the back of your mind of, oh, maybe I need a free meal today, maybe I need an off-plan meal, maybe I need to have a maintenance break. But if you just know this week is my maintenance break, this day is my off-plan meal, it can help with not being overly fixated on it. And that's one thing that we don't want to do, is we don't want to have our diet be so restrictive that that's the only thing that's getting you through, is that you're just basically waiting for your free meal or for your off-plan meal or for your diet break. Because especially if you have to do this for a long time, right, there's a difference between sustained actual just weight loss, where it's sustained and going from 25% to 12% versus going from 17 to 12, right? You can be pretty restrictive. Anyone can hyperly restrict themselves. I guess not anyone, but most people can hyper restrict themselves for 12 to 16 weeks. But when we're talking about actual sustained weight loss, when you have a very large chunk of weight to lose, and it's gonna have to be 6 or 8 months in a deficit, that's a completely different story. And during those cases, I like to structure in diet breaks. Now, there's a very interesting study that just came out where they had one group do a continuous calorie deficit and one group had both a maintenance day once a week and then a maintenance week once a month. And so they ended up having, I think it was around 20 or 25 days where they weren't in a deficit compared to the group that was in a continuous deficit, and they both lost the same amount of fat. And they maintained their strength and their muscle just as well. So that's kind of interesting. And we've actually seen this before in the literature, that when you are in a depleted state, when you have been in a deficit, it's really hard to put on fat right away, because you have to refill your glycogen stores first. Your body is not your body doesn't want to store the food that you're using, that you're overfeeding with, as fat, because it's been in this deficit state for so long. It has a lot of different processes that have been underfed that it wants to feed. So that's the hypothesis that they cited was why these people lost the same amount of weight, even though they had less total time in the deficit. And personally, I think this is great, because it really does make it a lot more sustainable when you can have those high days, those high weekends, right? And it's essentially the same idea as carb cycling. Carb cycling is normally just where you have one day. Traditional carb cycling is where you just eat less on your rest days. You eat less carbs because you don't need them to fuel your workout. And that's fine. I've done it before. It's just another strategy to achieve a calorie deficit and a good way to eat less calories. And the easiest way that I have implemented carb cycling is literally just take your exact same meal plan and just don't use your intra workout. Because obviously you're not working out, so you don't need your intra. And my intra is normally 160 calories, so that's easy 160 calories that I'm not consuming. But on top of that, you can also do calorie banking, where you more so eat in a steeper calorie deficit during the week, and then you have 2 days on the weekend or 3 days, depending on how you want to structure this. You could do 3 and 4, you could do 2 and 5, it really doesn't matter. As long as you're reaching that same weekly deficit, you can play with different calorie amounts on different days. And this does complicate things a little bit. So I'm not the biggest fan of calorie banking if it fits your macros. I think if you're gonna do calorie banking, you should do a mixture. I think the best way would be to have a meal plan for your 5 days. And then on your weekends, then you can try an if it fits your macros approach. Because if you're doing if it fits your macros for every single day, I have come less and less of an advocate for if it fits your macros, because it is a sustainable approach. And I think it's fine for maintenance, but I think for weight loss phases, it's not nearly as good. And there actually is some data around this now of people losing less weight doing if it fits your macros versus having structured, repeated meal plans. And this kind of makes sense in my head, especially with just what I've seen it with clients as well, is that when you are eating different foods and tracking differently, first of all, you're going to have tracking error. That's just going to happen, right? Even registered dietitians are normally undershooting their calories by around 10% when they're trying their damnedest to be as accurate as possible. So there's gonna be error, and obviously this error can add up over the days. And it also just, you have a ton of decision fatigue because you're making thousands of decisions every single day. Micro decisions, probably tens of thousands, to be honest. And it really adds up, and it kind of gets, that's why it's called decision fatigue. You get tired of making decisions, and then just your brain wants to default to the easy thing. And the easy thing is never going to be to meal prep, to make a healthy meal. It's going to be to go to the McDonald's drive-thru. So that's why I don't necessarily like doing it if it fits your macros all the time, especially because then you're playing macro Tetris throughout the day, and it can really cause a lot of food focus as well. It kind of just gets you to be obsessed with food. Whereas when you have a meal plan, you can still add in variety into your meal plan, but that way you just know what you're eating. And people do this all the time. Anytime I talk about meal plans, people always freak out. They're like, oh, I can never eat the same thing every day. But then you have people who literally have been eating the same breakfast, their eggs with toast or their little bowl of oats for 20 years. But the second that you call it a meal plan, they're like, oh, I would never do that. Yeah. Label it however you want. I'm just talking about reducing the intraday variety so you can have more inter-day variety. And so that's my thoughts on that. In terms of whether or not you need refeeds or cheat meals, first of all, I don't like calling them cheat meals. And I don't think there's not a good coach in this world, in my opinion, that will call them a cheat meal, because you're not cheating on anything. This is your life. It's not a high school girlfriend. And that also makes it seem like, oh, I'm on a diet, versus this is just how I live, right? Food is food. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just food. It's fuel. And sometimes you might want to have a little bit more. Sometimes you might want to have something that isn't necessarily the most nutritious, and that's totally fine. So I like calling them, I've said it before in this video, off-plan meals, or not refeeds, because they're not refeeds. Off-plan meals or free meals, something like that. Just because even the labeling of it makes a big difference. Labeling is huge. The way that your brain just psychologically ties a lot of weight onto labels. And that's why it can be so powerful to avoid labeling yourself. That's why I tell people not to label themselves, especially negative things. It's a lot harder to overcome a binge eating disorder, or being depressed, or being, like, these are obviously huge examples, but even if you're just an overeater, or even if you're just someone who struggles to diet, if you label yourself as, oh, I am someone who struggles to diet, now your brain is going to subconsciously do things that reinforce that, because you always want to be right. Your brain loves to be right. So if you label yourself as something, your brain's going to try and do it. But you can also use this to your advantage, right? You can say you label yourself as the version of yourself that you want to become, that you are becoming. And then, of course, your brain is going to do things that take you one step further to becoming this person. And anyways, off-plan meals. Like I said, I like to have them planned in. So for my clients, I'll say just have your off-plan meal planned. Have one day, and it doesn't have to be the same day every week, right? Maybe because I get that people have fluctuating schedules. Maybe you just have one off-plan meal, and you don't even have to have an off-plan meal. But if it helps adherence, then do it. And again, it doesn't seem to affect weight loss as long as you're not going overboard. As long as you're off-plan meal. I had a problem with this where I would have off-plan meals and I would eat literally an entire Domino's pizza, a whole cheesy bread, and a full thing of bread bites. And that might not even be it. And that's like a 5,000 to 7,000 calorie fucking off-plan meal. That can derail your progress pretty damn easily, pretty damn quick. And that's partially because of how I was viewing the off-plan meals, right? You have to view them. This is the crazy thing, is we've done research on off-plan meals. And if you view them as part of the process, then they are a lot more effective and they're a lot better for you psychologically than if you view them as cheating, if you view them as something that you shouldn't do. That really is, again, it's just the labeling. So viewing them as part of the process, and then not viewing them as a way to just gorge yourself. View them as a way to just enjoy food, enjoy the time with your family. Ideally, you're not having your off-plan meal. Ideally, your off-plan meal is not doing what I was doing, where you're just housing a shit ton of Domino's, and it's not even really that good, to be honest. Just housing it in your dark room, watching anime by yourself. Ideally, you're going on a date with your partner, or you're at a family dinner, or maybe you're just out with your friends. And viewing it more so as that, is you're there for the social connection, and there might be food tied to it. That is really the key, is just separating yourself from the food, not viewing it as an opportunity to gorge yourself. Just view it as an opportunity to try some new stuff, or to try something that you maybe don't always have. And really trying to go into those meals, and don't treat it like it's this grand thing. It's just another meal. Do everything that you would normally do. Actually focus on drinking fluids throughout the meal and chewing your food thoroughly. Actually eating meals before then. That was another thing that I would do, is I would eat literally nothing all day. I'd do probably some fasted cardio, and then I would just house that massive Domino's beat. And that's what part of that, it wasn't contributing to weight gain because of that, but it also was terrible, and it was just reinforcing this psychological loop. And the other thing is, after you have your off-plan meal, expect some weight bump the next day. If you don't, that's great. But you're probably going to see it, again, because most of the time they're going to be pretty high in sodium, so you're going to be holding on to some extra water. Normally you are eating a little bit more, so you're going to have extra food waste. And just expect that bump and be okay with it, and know that it's going away, right? Anytime I talk about off-plan meals, I always want to bring up Sagayama et al., my goat. They took people who were in calorie deficits, they overfed them by 1,500 calories 3 days in a row, and guess what happened? They gained weight. Shocker. But here's the key. They didn't gain any fat. It was all water. It was all waste. It was all glycogen. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Every gram of glycogen, which is just your body, how it stores carbs, binds to 3 to 4 grams of water. So you're going to hold on to glycogen, you're going to hold on to water, especially when you're in a depleted state. You're going to pump up full of water, especially with the added sodium. So obviously your off-plan meal caused you to gain 5 to 7 pounds in a night. Take that as feedback. But if it's a ish 3 to maybe 3 or more pounds around there, just take it to the chin and go on. You don't need to punish yourself with cardio the next day. You don't need to think about it too much. Look back at the tape, right? Replay it. Maybe you did go overboard. Maybe you didn't listen to your hunger signaling. Maybe you ate when you weren't hungry. Maybe you did some things that you probably shouldn't have, and that's fine. But it's just take it as a data point and then move on, and just try to be better next time. And that's all you can really do. And then look at the good things that you did as well. Look at the things that you can double down on. Maybe you did a great job of preloading that off-plan meal with some fiber and with some protein. That way you were going to actually get full quicker. Maybe you actually ate your meals going up to it. Maybe you had good fluid during it. Maybe you decided not to order 8 cookies and you only got 6. That's still a win. Anyways, drop a follow or subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. I love y'all. Peace.